Hi, this is Walcott Fine Art, and I'm Jason Walcott. In this second video on pastel, I thought we could take a look at some different brands of pastels that are on the market, and different surfaces and papers that you can use with them. So, let's get started. Welcome back to my art channel. Today, we are going to be taking a look at some different brands of pastels and paper. I'll show you some common ones, as well as some of the less common brands that are my favorites. Again, this is all about the dry kind of pastels, not oil pastels. That is a completely separate medium, which I will not cover here. Pastels are commonly sold in sets and individual sticks. If you are just starting out in pastel, you may want to buy a smaller set and then fill in a few of the gaps with individual colors. However, if you are very serious about them or are already familiar with pastel and want to take the next step, you have the option of purchasing a full set. There is a good reason why pastel artists buy so many sticks. While pastels can be blended to a degree, you can't really mix pastels the same way you do with liquid paint. Therefore, an artist is buying all the sticks essentially as pre-mixed colors. Because of that, it is always best to have a wide range of shades and values in each color family. Pastels come in different hardnesses from very hard to very soft. The hard ones are best used for sketching and laying down the first layers on a painting. It's always easier to go over a layer of hard pastels with a softer one. Common brands of the hardest pastels include Tragacanth, NuPastel, and Colourfix. Let's take a quick look. So here's an example of some of the hardest pastels that I just mentioned. Now, this brand I have here is the Tragacanth. That's a pretty good brand, pretty high quality. And the one thing you'll notice about all these brands of very hard pastels is they all come in these very long, skinny, square sticks. So I'll show you an example. When you put them down on the paper, you can see that even with some moderate pressure, they don't leave a lot of pigment behind on the paper. And that is because they're very hard. And when you rub them, they do blend out, but you have to rub it pretty hard to really get it to move. And that quality comes from the hardness of the pastel, making it less easy to blend out. And the reason these pastels are so hard is because they have more binder in them. The basic way that pastels are made is they are just dry pigment combined with a binder, something that's called gum Tragacanth. And the higher the ratio of binder there is to pigment, the harder the pastel will be. So basically they just mix the binder and some water with the dry pigment to make a paste that's then rolled out or pressed out through a machine and allowed to dry. So like I said, the more binder there is, the harder the pastel will be. The less binder there is, the softer the pastel will be. So these pastels just have more binder in them, which makes them harder. So this gives you an example of how they go down onto the paper and how they work in terms of blending out. Medium soft pastels are good for final paintings or for intermediate layers. You can also use them to start a piece that you plan to finish with the softest pastels. The most common brand in this range are Rembrandt pastels. They are one of the most popular brands on the market and are used by both professionals and hobbyists alike. Another great brand is Giraud pastels, which are also wonderful for putting details in at the end of the painting process. So let's do a quick demo with the Rembrandt and Giraud pastels. Now this is a box of Rembrandts that I got. It is the box of 90 half sticks. And as you can see, there's a lot of beautiful colors in there. And as I said in the narration, Rembrandts are one of the most popular brands of pastel that are on the market. And a lot of artists use these. And they're very, very nice pastels. You can see, when I go down on the paper, that more pigment comes off with these than was coming off with the harder pastels. Yeah, and you can use pastels both on their corner for lines or on their side for large areas. And because these are softer than the Creta colors, you can see they go right down over top of them, because the softer pastels will always go down on top of a harder pastel. And the Rembrandts are very nice. The full set, I believe, is 225 colors. So if you're just starting out with pastel, it's a great brand to start with. And the only drawback to Rembrandts that I can find is they come, when they're brand new, they come with this kind of like a shiny coating on them that when you first use them, like, you see, you have to use them several times before the pigment starts to come off. So when you first get them, you have to rub that coating off. So that's a little irritating to have to do that. But other than that, these are a really great starter pastel. They're really, really nice, high quality. So check out the Rembrandts. I will put the links to everything in the description, so you can go and check out all these brands for yourself. And then the other brand of semi-hard or semi-soft pastels that I love, that I use all the time in my work, are these Giraud pastels. Now, these are a little bit pricier than the Rembrandts, but they're really nice, and they have a very interesting sort of dense texture to them. It's almost what I would describe as an al dente texture, which sounds weird for pastels because you wouldn't eat them, but it seems to give an accurate description. The pigmentation is really good on these, and they're great for detail work, like at the end of a painting. So, and you can see how nice the color comes off on these onto the paper. So those are the Giraud pastels. So now these you can get from Jerry's Artorama. So if you're interested in trying the Giraud, you can go and check those out. The softest pastels on the market are my favorites, and I use these almost exclusively in my own pastel paintings. There are a lot of brands in this category, and it includes the brands of what I like to call artisanal pastels. Many of these are handmade or hand-rolled. These buttery soft pastels are richly pigmented and are a joy to use. While these brands are priced in the same range as the more common brands, they are harder to find in stores and usually need to be ordered online. My top 3 favorite handmade brands are Terry Ludwig, Diane Townsend, and Unison. Other fantastic brands in this softest category that I also use are Great American, Mount Vision, Sennelier, and Schmincke. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the softest pastels, which are my favorite. And these are the really high quality, richly pigmented ones that I use mostly for my paintings. And we'll take a look at my favorites first, and one of those is Terry Ludwig's. And the Terry Ludwig pastels are made in the USA, in Colorado. And the company is owned by Terry Ludwig. And as you can see, they come in these sort of square, chunky pastel sticks. And these are really soft and velvety. Look how that comes off on my finger without even getting to the paper first. So as you can see, when you put that down, it really makes a beautiful, thick, very rich, buttery stroke. And so these are great for finishing paintings, for putting in, the last layers of a painting at the end. So those are the Terry Ludwigs. And another of my favorite brands are the Diane Townsend pastels, which are made in Pennsylvania. And the thing that I love about Diane's pastels is they contain a little bit of pumice, so they have a really nice sort of sandy, gritty texture, but it's a really nice texture. And just like the others in this category, hers are very soft and really richly pigmented. And you can tell by the way they're shaped, you know, that they're all actually hand-rolled, handmade, and I love that. I think that's really cool. And as you can see, this blue here is a little bit of Rembrandt pastel that I laid down. And so as you can see, the Diane Townsends are so soft, they just go right over top of that blue, you know, without picking it up. So that's how you can layer in a pastel painting from hard to soft. So those are the Diane Townsends. And then my third favorite brand that I use a lot of in my paintings is Unison. And these are handmade in Britain. And they come with these little paper wrappers on them. Most pastels do. But these, like the other two I just showed you, are also very richly pigmented. But these are a little softer. They feel a little smoother when they go down on the paper. But again, they're just really wonderful pastels to work with. And see how they just go down and layer like that? Even on this smooth paper that hardly has any tooth to it, you can build up a couple of layers like that. So some other brands in the same category that I mentioned that I really like are the Great American Pastels. These are made in Ohio, I believe. And they come in these square colors, like square sticks like this. And the one thing that I really like a lot about Great American Pastels is that they're full set. If you buy the full set, each color family comes with a very wide range of values. So that's really useful and really helpful. They have really light lights and really dark darks, and Terry Ludwig does the same thing with his sets. So, and you can see those are very soft, just like the others. So, and that's the thing you'll get used to with pastels, is they will crumble on you sometimes like that. So it's always best to keep a tray underneath your easel when you're working to catch that, so it doesn't get on the rug or something. Another great brand is these Mount Visions. Now Mount Visions, one of the reasons I like Mount Visions is the consistency is very smooth. They're very consistent across the whole line. And the sticks you get are a little bigger than most other brands, so you get a little bit more bang for your buck with these Mount Visions. As you can see, the stick is really chunky and thick. And these are also great pastels. They're not quite maybe as soft as some of these others, but they're pretty close. But again, they have lots of pigment in them. And as you can see with these softer pastels, like the Terry Ludwigs and stuff, that they smear very easily compared to the hard pastels. So, you know, it's really easy to blend them together if you want to. So, and then the last two brands we'll look at, which are the most common, that you've probably seen before if you've shopped for pastels, are Sennelier, which are made in France, and Schmincke, which are made in Germany. Now, Schmincke is usually considered to be the softest soft pastel on the market. But the Great Americans and the Terry Ludwigs are pretty close. The differences are very minor. But Schmincke is a well-known brand. It's been around for a long time. Again, richly pigmented colors. They come from Germany. And then the other one, of course, is the Sennelier, which is made in France. Another great brand of soft pastel. Definitely in the high-end professional grade. So as you can see, those go down with much richer, deeper, thicker color. So that is the advantage of those really soft, high-quality pastels. So let's move on and look at papers. The most common and most used paper for pastel artists is Canson Métiers. It comes in a variety of both neutral and bright colors and has two sides to it. One side has a random, smoother texture, and the other side has a very pronounced waffle-like texture. Which one an artist prefers is entirely up to them. Many beginning pastelists start out using the Canson papers. The best paper to use for pastel, and my personal favorite, are the sand papers. Just like the kind from the hardware store, these pastel papers are coated with a layer of sand that often comes in different grits. The only difference is that the papers made for fine art are archival. The sanded surface really grips the pastel and allows you to build up many layers. There are many brands in this category, but my favorites are UArt and Pastel Matte. Other great brands of sandpapers include Sennelier La Carte, Canson Medience Touch, and Art Spectrum Colourfix. Lastly, another option you have is to make your own surface. You can buy primers that contain pumice or marble dust and paint them onto the paper of your choice to make a surface for pastels. Okay, so let's take a look at some of these different papers. So here in front of me I have two pieces of the Canson Medience, which, as I said, is one of the most common papers that pastel artists like to use, especially when they're first starting in pastel. And the Medience does come in a very large variety of colors. You can see that here. I've got some samples. Now these sheets I'm showing you here have been cut down from a larger sheet of paper. So when you go to buy, if you go to buy the Canson at like the store, you order it. It comes in big sheets. So, but it comes in all these different colors that you can try. So what I wanted to show you was the two different textures I mentioned of this paper. See, now this is the smooth side, and this is the textured side. So, and smooth isn't really the right word for this, but random would be a better word. The texture is less regular, and it's got kind of this randomness to it, so it's less noticeable. And so a lot of artists prefer this smooth side of the paper because of the random texture, whereas you can see with the textured side, it really does look like a waffle. And now some artists love that, but it's very distinctive to the Canson Medience. So sometimes if you'll see pastel paintings and you see that texture, you know that's what's been used for the paper because it has that very distinctive texture to it. So I just wanted to show you that so you could see and decide for yourself which one you like best. So let's take a few of the sanded papers and look at those. Now these are the two that are my favorite. This is the UArt paper, and this is the Pastel Matte. And the UArt is a straightforward sandpaper. So I've got a Mount Vision pastel here, and you can see how, because of the sanded surface, it really grips the pastel, and it really goes on thick, and doesn't come off at all. And it does make it, the sanded surface makes it, as you can see, a little harder to blend. It'll still blend, but not as easily as it does on a smooth paper. But depending on the method you use to paint, that may not be an issue for you, but it's just something to keep in mind. But I love the sanded papers because you can build up so many layers with them. You can just keep going and going and going. So, whereas the Canson paper, the texture of that paper tends to get filled up pretty quickly. Now this is a paper called Pastel Matte, which is technically a sanded surface, although it doesn't actually have sand on it. When you feel it, it doesn't feel that rough. It feels kind of smooth, but interestingly enough, it's made to hold many layers of pastel, so it behaves like a sanded surface, even though it doesn't feel like a sanded surface. So that's what a lot of artists like about it, because it's a little less rough on your fingers than the standard sandpaper for building up layers and if you want to blend and stuff. But you can see I've already got 4 on there. and it's still going down very cleanly. And you can blend with it, but you see how it behaves when you try to blend it like the sanded paper, that it doesn't blend that much. So it really grips the pastel, but it's not real rough like a sandpaper. So that's actually one of my favorite papers, as well as the UArt. So that's called Pastel Matte. It's made by Clairefontaine, so you guys can check that out if you want to give it a whirl. Another example of sanded paper is the Canson Mediance Touch, which is kind of their companion paper to the Mediance paper. And this is actually a sanded surface, so it comes in these different colors as well. So, and it's not quite as textured as the UArt, but it is a sanded surface, so it's perfect for pastel painting and getting a lot of layers built up on this surface as well. And like I mentioned, the other papers, the Art Spectrum Colourfix is a great paper. The Sennelier Le Carte is a great sanded paper that you can try. The only drawback with the Le Carte, the Sennelier paper, is you cannot use that with any kind of wet media because it destroys the surface. So just be aware of that. If you try the Le Carte, do not get any moisture on it because the surface will just completely fall apart. And then, of course, as your last option, as I mentioned, you can try a pastel primer. This is a primer made by Art Spectrum that contains pumice and sand, and it comes in a variety of different colors. And so you can use a brush or a roller to paint this on any surface you'd like to. If you want to work on watercolor paper or any kind of paper that will take a primer, you can paint this on and turn it into a pastel surface. So I hope that this video has given you an idea of brands of pastel and paper that are out there that you can try. And so I encourage you to experiment a little bit and see what you like and what you don't like. And I will see you guys in the next video. Take care. Thanks so much for watching. Go ahead and click on that subscribe button so you won't miss the next video. And why not spread the joy? Be sure to share my videos on your favorite social media. Don't forget to head on over to my website, walcottfineart.com, where you can see my art, read my blog, or when you join my newsletter list, you can win free art. Every month, I'll choose a lucky winner for my email list, and that person will receive a mini original oil painting. There's a chance to win every month, so be sure to sign up today so you don't miss out. Plus, you'll get my fun newsletter. See you next time!